Tuesday, August 29th, 2023, Town of Monroe Planning Board Special Meeting. Noreen, would you- roll call.
Bonnie Franson, Jeff Manson,
Here.
Pat Shea,
Here.
Nick Napoli,
Here.
Dylan Penn.
Here.
Thank you.
With that, we have a quorum, so we can conduct business. I'd like to point out the fire exits. There are two in front of me to the rear of the audience, another to my left, which is the main entrance into the building, and then another back toward my right. With that, could we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance. Item on the agenda is a returning project, Summercrest LLC. Good evening.
Thank you for scheduling this special meeting, and thank you all for being here tonight. I believe when we left off at the last meeting, the board was discussing a vote on scheduling a public hearing.
Or anything you'd want to present for this?
I don't necessarily have anything to present unless the board has any questions for me. My office submitted a letter today to Ashley. We had a productive discussion on that today. So I will turn it over to you for any. Our request tonight would.
Ashley, would you like to go through that letter? The attorney's letter?
Did you want to pull it up? I think.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up. So this came in the afternoon. So planning board's aware of what's been. I'll read it. The letter goes, as you know, we represent some applicant in application. Okay, for a certificate of appropriateness from the Town of Monroe Planning
A little
Board.
long. Did you want to read it word for? Do you want me to kind of just summarize and then give any comments, or?
Yeah, I will. Why don't you do that?
Sure.
Again, just individuals haven't had a chance to read it, so if you could do that.
Sure. So one of the things that's discussed in the letter, you might recall, I think it was maybe Jeff's question at the last meeting, something that was stated in a prior letter from Mr. DeJoy about the possible potential uses, and he said that there were different uses under the code that could potentially be applicable here, and you had asked if he'd identify what those were. So he did point to the use table and the zone, different things. Mostly they would require site plan or special use, site plan and special use approval. So there are different uses mentioned in there. The letter also discusses, the board had previously been discussing use, and I did speak a little bit with Mr. DeJoy earlier about this, and so they are before you for a COA, and one of the things that you have to evaluate in evaluating the exterior architecture and, the appropriateness of the changes that are proposed, the use is relevant to that. You would look at different uses different ways. They'd have different external features. One of the considerations in the code for your historic review, it's to consider the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation as appropriate, and those do speak to the use as well, the historic use, and whether the use is consistent with the historic use of the property. So I know that the applicant hasn't previously had any proposed use identified for the board. I don't know if that's changed at all, if there's any use you would want the board to consider. Not, this board's not approving any use at this time, but just to give them context to what they're reviewing in terms of the architecture, what a likely use might be, that would be helpful. RR1?
Does the applicant's representative have a response to that in terms of providing guidance so we know what or how to apply the historic standards?
I'd say with respect to the historic standards, I think, one, we have to consider that the buildings are currently unoccupied, and two, that the applicant is only proposing to repair them consistent with the existing. From a historic perspective, we're not changing anything, so I don't think, any proposed use, no matter what, would, necessitate the applicant to change the buildings from what they've always been, if that makes sense.
So then what have they always been?
The
As
way
a
that-
use.
Aesthetically, I mean. The aesthetics are not changing from what they've always been.
But it was a seasonal bungalow community
That's my
historically?
understanding, yeah. And they've been vacant for, I'm not sure how long exactly, but they are currently vacant.
They've been vacant for a while?
For some time, I'm not sure off the top of my head.
I would ask our attorney, do we need, again, more resolution with regard to the use to be able to come to applying or determining applicable architecture, materials, colors?
I mean, it would be, I think, certainly helpful and admissible for, ask her that. I think you could, in the alternative, consider it, without the applicant identifying use, consider it as if it were to be what it was previously, or, consider it as some sort of residential or seasonal dwelling. And as we've discussed previously, and I think the applicants acknowledged on the record before, that this board's not approving any use, so anything that that would be permitted by a COA, that's not saying that there's a legal use for the structures out there.
So I'll ask if the board members have any comments or questions they want to raise. Nick?
Nope, not at this time.
Primarily from the schedule of work, what I recall is that we're looking at the exterior wall structures and roofs, at least in some cases. I noticed on the material list and from some of the documentary pictures that there are windows that couldn't possibly be reused, and they're in the material list, but I didn't remember seeing in the schedule of work which buildings required windows. Now maybe I missed that.
Sure. No, that's not in there, and I think that's a fair question, and that certainly I could follow up on with some clarification. I don't have that answer right now.
Also, from reviewing the pictures on the site, and I'm sorry I haven't an opportunity to be out there quite yet, but it seems that the foundations are varied, that some are field stone, some look to be newer, more poured concrete, various things. From what I remember, there was no discussion of having to do anything with any of the foundations of the buildings, and I'm just wondering how that is determined at this point, that the foundations are all intact enough that they don't require anything, or what if we got into the work of renovation and we got to a point where there was a foundation where there was an issue, how that would need to be handled.
I think that may be a question for the building inspector. I'm not sure, but again, I can certainly speak with my client and try to get some clarification on that.
I mean, those were the two major exterior components that I considered on top of the walls and the roofs might need to be addressed, and we hadn't really discussed those certainly in any length.
Yeah, and as far as I'm aware, building permits were applied for to repair the siding and the roof, and the building
Yeah.
inspector then opined that we needed the COA for that, but I can certainly try to get some clarification.
Thank you.
So in your letter, you note that as a result of the building's dilapidated condition, which are, with exceptions, most of them are unoccupied, it says the applicant has been issued violations from the building inspector. Have those violations been on all of the buildings or just the buildings which have been rehabilitated and are being occupied?
I believe just the ones that are being rehabilitated and are currently unoccupied.
Applicant must violations by applying for building permits and a COA. So what are those violations?
I don't have them. I could provide them. I could try to speak with my client and get some clarification, but yeah, I don't want to guess as to what they are. I know they have been issued over a course of time, so.
Because there's, embedded in this, it says by applying for building permits, but if they're not inhabited and they're not occupied, they could also be demolished, could they not?
Potentially.
Okay, so building permit isn't the only way to go. It's just that's the way the applicant wants to proceed.
Well, I believe the applicant has been instructed by the building inspector to remedy these violations by seeking a building permit and seeking the certificate of appropriateness, because these are historic buildings and the code, encourages restoration rather than just demolishing them.
So the need for a COA actually came up because the applicant requested from the town historian to designate them as historic.
That I don't know, but the instant application came up because the building inspector referred us here.
Correct, and the letter he gave us was because there was a request made, that's what has been communicated to us, for the building to be determined to be historic. And I'm not questioning the town historian authority or that it shouldn't be. It's just, it wouldn't have required a COA except for the applicant did make the request to become historic. The town historian did render that determination, so now they're in front of us with a COA.
Yeah, that sounds.
Okay, but in terms of violations, they're in front of us not because of the violations, they're in front of us because suddenly it was determined to be a historic property, and that's where our authority comes in.
I could be wrong, I don't know for sure, but I believe the violations were issued subsequent to the determination.
Okay.
And I don't know that for sure, that's my understanding, so I could be wrong.
If our engineer or attorney have any insights into that you want to add, feel free. I'm just trying to, the record has been very confusing to me. And again, the representations as far as remedying violations, and I don't know whether the building permit remedy is a result of what the building inspector has determined, or if that's something that merely the applicant is pursuing. So I'd want to, kind of have a follow-up with the building inspector on that.
All right, and I think really our point there was more that we're just seeking to repair the buildings so they're not falling down, that there are no immediate plans for them.
So at this point, there is no commitment to the use to which they could be used or to how they're being rehabilitated.
There's no commitment to a future proposed use, no.
So in terms of our determinations, we don't have that benefit of knowing.
No, but we are, like I said before, we are only restoring these buildings aesthetically as they were.
I think there was reference to asbestos shingles. Are asbestos shingles, can they be installed? I don't know if I asked this previously. Is it is there a new type of asbestos that it's allowed, or no?
My understanding is yes, I believe I heard you can buy them right at Home Depot, but I don't have the answer to that.
My understanding on the asbestos was it would be for siding, not for shingles, and they're going to be painting the existing asbestos siding,
Okay, so it's
not
not,
installing new.
not new, I didn't
Right.
think asbestos, so it's not new asbestos.
Right, it's the existing asbestos.
Okay. Pat, do you have any?
My only question, and I think it may have been answered by your question, Bonnie, was how many of these bond repair?
I think to some degree that remains to be seen, but as of right now, I think, we're optimistic that none are beyond repair.
All?
Dylan? At this point, when did it go out for GML review to the county?
It hasn't been 30 days, I know that.
And before the last meeting
It
we
was
just
sent,
had,
I think, around
2
the time
weeks
of
ago?
the last meeting,
Around the
probably?
time of the, sorry, I'm off. Around the time of the last meeting it was sent.
It was about 2 weeks ago?
No, it was last week was ZBA. Yes, 2
Like
weeks.
2 weeks ago, right? Okay. So we still have another 2 weeks on that. And then we did talk about a public hearing. There was discussion, I think, about having the public hearing, that it would be a good idea to just be able to get additional input. Where are we on that? Public hearing?
Sounds good to me. Aye.
I'm in favor of a public hearing. I think it would give us an opportunity to hear from residents, particularly along that stretch of Lakes Road, a number of whom probably have lived there quite some time and would have some good perspective for us on what it was historically, and that. I'd really appreciate that input.
At public hearing?
My only question on the public hearing is, what could be the outcomes of a public hearing?
From a legal perspective?
Yeah.
Is there a time frame? Does the public hearing, do decisions have to be made? Is anything triggered by holding the public hearing, scheduling it at this
So
point?
you are to, if you're going to hold a public hearing, it's within 62 days of determining that it's a complete application, and then after the public hearing, 62 days to make a decision.
But the
is that-
public hearing can remain open, and then the 62 days gets triggered after
Closing.
closing? Okay.
I guess my question was, if someone raised an objection, or, what can the outcomes be of a public hearing? Let's say that, people support it, people don't support it.
It depends. With all your public hearings, your board operates under the code and under your planning board concerns, where it's to get feedback from the public that's relevant to those issues. So if someone just comes out and says, "Oh, I'm against something," that's not a true, something without basis for you to consider. So you get feedback from the public, and if they have any insight on the history, things like that, it's to really get the input from them on the standards that are applicable to your review.
So it would seem to me, if we have the public hearings, we could be delaying any action for several months going into winter, correct?
Typically a public hearing is one night. If, there's a
But,
packed room where you need to, hold it over, or if there's something raised that warrants additional information, I don't see it being extended.
Well, but you would,
Oh, those are the outer limits, so there's nothing you could make a decision right after the public hearing, but I thought the question was, does that impose any outer limit for when you must do something?
just thinking of Just questioning whether we could be inviting any litigation by,
I think that we should discuss that in attorney-client, if
Okay.
you have questions like that.
right?
And I would note that if, the code does call for a public hearing, so it's not that you're doing something that's not provided for in the code, and you're also still waiting on your county GML referral, so you would not be able to act until you've received that back as well.
So based upon what I know now.
It's no
and the-
change in the timeline.
And the answers that have been given, I would be in favor of a public hearing.
Okay, so I think we could kind of take this two tiers. Are you in favor of a public hearing, and then if we're ready for that motion? Because I have some questions on complete application, since you brought that up. Dylan?
We'll keep it simple. I am in favor.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm reviewing what it says about complete application, and this is for a certificate of appropriateness. And it says, following information is required unless waived by the planning board in its discretion. And I think if there are waivers, the applicant should make the request for those waivers of the information. So photographs and a brief description of any structure proposed to be altered or demolished, including approximate date of construction, name of architect if known, historic and architectural significance, and description of the setting, including related grounds, accessory buildings, and structures and property boundaries. I think from my perspective, we have a lot of that, most of that. B is the past 10 years chronology of the use, occupancy, and ownership of the property. Do we have that?
I believe that was in our original submission.
So 10 years of the use?
I believe so, yeah. I can.
If you
confirm.
could.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the use, so the use in terms of it's vacant, or it's occupied by single-family dwelling, or I think there's a two-family, but all of that was laid out?
It should be, yeah, and we'd be happy to provide any more clarification if necessary.
Okay.
I'm going to say is it yes. Not sure about the use.
Not sure of
that
the use.
that I recall.
Okay. And I'm not sure about the occupancy. And part of the confusion is some of the information came to us, some of it via the building inspector. Gave us some pieces of information, and some of it came from the applicant, so I'm not sure what's what.
Okay. Yeah, we like I said, we'd be happy to clarify if any additional information is needed.
Then number C, not number C, letter C, a complete description of the proposed work adequate to provide a full understanding of the work to be done. I think that we have that in terms of it's pretty limited in terms of but you were going to get back to us on the concrete, or sorry, the foundations and the windows. Okay. Sorry, I have to sneeze. Construction drawings and material lists. Construction drawings, we don't necessarily have construction drawings. We do have the material lists as far as what's to be, installed.
Right, right.
I know, just to speak to that, I know in prior submissions, because you did put together the chart, which was good. In prior submissions, I recall there was a picture, I think, of like a Home Depot shopping cart or something with the actual materials. If you have that readily available, so that could just be like a single document. I know it was buried in other documents, but just if you could submit that way, it's something that could be easily referenced for the.
Any other information specific to the proposed alteration, demolition, or new construction required by the planning board to make a determination, including data to demonstrate compliance with the criteria for approval set forth below. So that's demolition. I think we got an EAF for this. Okay. The rest gets into the criteria. So I'd be willing to schedule a public hearing subject to ensuring that we make sure that we've received B, which was the past 10 years chronology, the use, occupancy, and ownership of the property. And D, with regard to a concise description of the materials as opposed to Home Depot
I
pictures.
know I've requested before from a construction drawing perspective is there's aesthetic information in how the eaves of the roofs will be developed and the truss structure, items of that nature that we do have oversight on. So I've asked for it before, and I would be interested in seeing that as well.
Okay, I'll try to provide what I can. I know since we're not doing any new construction or any additions, I don't know the extent of the drawings, and I'm not a builder, so I can't personally speak to it, but whatever we can in that regard, we'll try to provide.
Thank you.
So, again, what I've indicated already, materials to include also information on the foundations and windows to the extent they may or may not be changing. So, anything else I should consider, Ashley, in that draft of a motion? All right. So condition upon, so when we receive that information, at that point, we'll schedule it. So that's what I mean, condition upon getting that. I don't want to schedule it until we get that information. So the sooner the applicant gets it to us, the sooner we can schedule the public hearing.
I think, because you'd have to then wait, I think you could schedule the public hearing and it'll be conditioned that they have to submit that information. I'm just thinking of when the hearing
Prior
notice has
to.
to go out compared to when the submission deadline is, that I think, and if something is not submitted in time, you would just have to hold the hearing open. I think that
Okay.
would be the better way to do it, so you could at least get the hearing notices out.
Okay, but then it's not a complete application. So that's more my issue. So I don't want to like wait to schedule it, but I also don't want to schedule it or hold it if it's not entirely complete. Of course, unless you wanted a waiver. So then you have to make that request.
Maybe we could
That's what
ask for a waiver to the extent it allows us allows the board to schedule a public hearing with the understanding that we will still provide it, if that makes sense. We would be providing it voluntarily.
I would just say provide it. And so when's our next meeting?
Our next meeting is September 14th. Public hearings on the workshop, the regular meeting, 19th.
So the 19th, and what's the regular?
Regular is the 14th, because,
The workshop is the,
yeah,
14th and the
Oh, I'm
19th.
sorry,
So
did-
that doesn't allow us enough time for a public notice?
well, it does, submission date for the September meetings is Thursday by noon,
This Thursday?
this Thursday by noon.
So I think that we could provide a little flexibility in that, so
Mailings
long
have
as
to
we
be-
have the sufficient time for public hearing notice.
Okay, the notice needs to be mailed no later than Saturday, the 9th.
So
That gives it,
for our regular meeting, you said it's the 19th?
the meeting is the 19th, it has to be mailed 10 days prior.
So,
published 10 days prior as well.
okay, so the regular meeting's the 19th. So we'd have to have the notice for the 8th? By the 8th, which is a Friday?
10 days prior,
They have to mail it 10 days prior and post it 10, so.
and publish it 10 days prior.
Right, so I have to have it to the newspaper by, I think I have to have it by the newspaper by, no, they gave me a new schedule. I don't remember their schedule, they just sent a new one as to, because now the Orange County paper is done out of Jersey. So they changed when I have to have in for publication, I don't remember what it is. Because it used to be I could do it a week before. She's saying this one has to be 10 days. So I think I have to submit it to them by Monday, the 4th, in order for them to put it in the paper by Friday.
By the 4th, which would be next Monday.
Which is a holiday.
Right, it's a holiday, that's Labor Day.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
okay.
When do you think you'd be able to get that additional information to the extent it's,
I mean, we could get it soon, and, you know, I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think the board could even schedule a public hearing until the next meeting, which would be on the 14th, right?
no, I think you could schedule it.
Oh, you're gonna
Now,
schedule it tonight.
except
Yeah, contingent on receiving.
conditioned on, so if we didn't receive, if we
Okay.
didn't receive the information before we have to post notice, then we're not gonna hold it. We'd have to then go out to the workshop and then schedule it at the workshop, but then that's gonna, you know, because then we're still not gonna have enough time. So I think that if you could get us this information by, it'd have to be on Friday.
Closed, I won't be,
Oh, it's still closed?
Monday's Labor
I
Day,
won't
too.
be back to the office till Tuesday.
Because it's a long
Yeah,
weekend.
it's a holiday weekend. Yeah, town hall is closed on Fridays till October.
The issue right now is the notice, not
No, I understand, yeah.
the submission
I can
date.
do everything up until,
Would you be able to, by the end of this,
Yeah,
we get the information, say, Thursday, send it to Juan and I, then if you could tell me how to get the notice published, I'll send it to the paper.
well, if I'm here till 5 on Thursday, so I can get it published.
Is there someone else that can get it published at town hall? Or everybody's out on Fridays? Everybody's out
The
on
building's
Fridays?
closed.
Okay. I didn't know when they go back to the normal schedule. Oh, October?
I think we'll be able
Wow.
to
You think you can
to
do it?
get it,
Between the
to get
three
it
of us,
published.
if you want, I mean.
All right. So look, we're going to endeavor to schedule a public hearing for our regular meeting in September, which is the 19th,
September 19th at 6 PM or soon thereafter.
at 6 PM as soon thereafter, conditioned upon submission of the items that are set forth under complete application, as well as those items mentioned by our attorney and Mr. Manson. But that information then has to be to our engineer and to our attorney on Thursday, the 31st.
okay. With respect to the foundation and windows, again, I'm happy to follow up on that, but for the purposes of a complete application, could we exclude those two items? Because, you know, in all fairness, we haven't applied for those, and as far as we know, we were not required to apply with respect to those.
So,
If they're not being changed, or there's nothing changing on them, then they wouldn't be part of the,
so the only thing we're going to authorize then in terms of changes to the
it
building.
would be whatever,
Yeah, so our certificate of appropriateness is going to be explicit that no work is to be done on the foundations or,
Well, I think it's maybe a, you know, question for the building inspector. His position may be that you don't need permits for the foundations or the windows, and again, I'm just, you know,
Yeah,
trying to.
that wouldn't make sense, but
Yeah, I mean, that's what he referred us for the siding and the roof, so that's, you know, what we've applied for.
we're going to deal with that separately. So,
And I'm just worried that we won't be able to have that necessarily resolved by Thursday. I don't know what the building inspectors.
well, I think if we don't get something from the applicant, then ultimately, we're not going to approve anything with regard to those, and then in our resolution, we're going to indicate to the building inspector that there should be no changes. It's his determination, but that is going to be probably in our resolution, because it's supposed to be all exterior alterations. And so if the only thing being requested are 2 items, then that's what's getting considered.
Sure, I mean, yeah, we're only asking for the COA for those 2 items, but I don't know, you know, without speaking to the building inspector, what changes can be made to the, or not changes, but repairs can be made to the foundation and windows. I mean, I don't even know that they necessarily need to be repaired or replaced. I mean, I understand some of them probably look like they, and that's it.
I'm a little less concerned about the foundations than the windows. Because some of them are just, you know, shattered or, you know, in dilapidated condition.
And I don't know, and again, I'm not a building inspector
But
or a builder, but
That's fine, because without the windows, then there's no occupancy, so.
sure.
So you have a sense of where we're going with this, Ashley? This motion? Okay. All right, everybody have a sense? Okay, so I'm going to make that motion based upon the conditions we've discussed. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Noreen?
Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Jeff Manson,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Nick Napoli,
Aye.
Dylan Penn.
Aye.
Want
Nope,
to address with us?
nope, thank you very much.
Okay. And then board members, I wanted to address, we did receive that determination from the building inspector that indicated the uses that are proposed, or that are he indicated or provided a determination letter to us. And I think we had questions on that determination letter. So I'm going to recommend that separately and independently of the COA, that the board receive this building inspector determination dated August 10th, 2023. And I'd like to make a motion that the planning board appeal the building inspector's determination of 8/10/23 to the ZBA, and then authorize the planning board to prepare the appeal, and that I would sign any documents related thereto. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Question.
Any questions?
I don't think I saw that letter. It might be because I was out, on vacation. Did you say August 10th? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was received, I think, right before one of the meetings. And were you out, Pat?
I was out, from the 15th through the 25th, so.
Can I ask what the basis of the appeal is?
It's the determination that was made, the list of buildings and the uses that were set forth therein, the content of it.
Right, I understand the building inspector's determination, but I don't understand what the planning board is appealing.
We're appealing the determination of what that information provided and what was set forth in it.
Area variance or use variance?
It's I guess, an
That's just an
interpretation of
appeal
that
Of the
determination.
determination.
Yeah. I may have used the
And
word
again, that's
variance,
sep-
but it's an interpretation of that determination, I guess.
What interpretation is the planning board seeking?
It's regarding the uses that we've been talking about.
Right,
And the building
understand that, but
inspector's
when you-
determination.
I understand that, but when you ask the ZBA for an interpretation, you have to,
Not so much, I think, that the planning board asking for an interpretation there, I understand, have questions. They're appealing that determination and asking whether it's accurate.
They be provided the facts and the information for them to review that determination.
yeah, if that's the board's position, that's your position, but I don't really understand from the ZBA as an appellate body, what they're reviewing or interpreting. You wouldn't normally go to a ZBA and just ask if the building inspector is correct. Usually you have to ask for a specific interpretation.
Well, it's the interpretation of the information that's in that determination. That's what you normally do, ask for, is it correct, or you question.
Yeah,
So
but
there were uses, there were specific buildings, there's a question of occupancy, et cetera. So all of that is what we would bring up with the ZBA.
For my vote, I think I should excuse myself on this vote because I haven't read that. I don't have enough information really to vote one way or the other because I don't even know what the appeal is.
So if you have questions, we
And
can
you
go.
still have a
Pat-
quorum.
Pat could abstain.
You want-
If he,
If you want to
if he's
abstain,
not-
you can.
Yeah, I think
you
I'll
feel
abstain.
more
just
comfortable.
because- Yeah, you have a.
The only other thing I was going to suggest is there a need to go into attorney-client to further explain, or no?
You have a quorum.
If he
without-
hasn't reviewed it, if he
Then
wants an
just-
opportunity to review it and before voting, I think that's fine.
To go into attorney-client?
You could do either, or Pat could abstain.
Or
I don't
can
know that he's
abstain? That's up to
gonna
you,
be
Pat. I'm
comfortable
just
to make
offering a couple of,
I don't
I'll
know that-
abstain.
you abstain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before the board votes in, I just have to object for the record that I don't believe the board has jurisdiction to refer the applicant to the ZBA or seek an
If I could there, the board's not referring the applicant to the ZBA, and this is not part of the review of that application. So separate from that, the board has the authority under town law to appeal a determination that's made by, as a board of the town, to appeal a determination that's made by the building inspector. So that's what they're doing
I'll
here.
just-
Again, it's not going to, the COA application's still going to proceed on the same path. You're going to have the hearing, and it's not going to be dependent on the ZBA appeal or anything, so it won't change the timeline.
I'll just state my objection for the record then, thank you.
Noted. Are you doing roll? Okay. So a second?
I'll second.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
You. All right. Thank you. Next item on the agenda. So we just have minutes. So if you want to head out, you're welcome.
I have a lot of minutes.
You can also stay if you want. It's up to you.
If you felt strongly about it.
You have better things to do?
We have a couple members in the audience. I just wanted to, do you have any questions or, okay, thanks. I know that's Steve from the ZBA. Good night. All right, so of the minutes, huh? No, not, we'll give you a couple more minutes if you could hang with us. So I didn't get the word versions of a couple of them, but I did get word versions of others, so I did make edits. So let me bring them up, and if anybody else fully went through them. So we're reviewing, let's make sure we have everybody to do this. Ones I was able to review, again, I make the edits right into the document, so if I don't have the Word document, or if I don't have the Word version, I only have the PDF, I don't make the edits because there are a lot of them. But 713, and so just to be clear right now, because I listed this out, we don't have August 19th, we don't have August 15th, we don't have July 18th. May 16th was approved already. May 11th, I don't believe was, although the minutes are on board doc, so they must be draft. And then April 18th was approved on 5/16, so. It's right, so we have April 13th, May 11th, June 8th, June 20, July 13th. I had the Word versions of July 13th, so it was myself, Jeff, Pat, Dylan, and Luis. So I think we're good with the minutes. I think we're good to be able to approve them. So is Barrett one T or two Ts? Well, if it was one Barrett, that was the accessory apartment.
I don't recall. but
Just
I will
check
look
that
on-
one.
Yeah, I'll look on the application.
So then otherwise, a lot of this was just typos. These are the edits I made in red line. So Barrett was the accessory apartment. And then we went over Eagle View Estates, which was all about the Namaco project over on Lakes, the whole sewer issue with Moodna Creek. So I just put BF edits from here. You can delete that, Noreen, but I didn't feel like redlining it at that point. So I just was making the edits.
Forward it to me and I'll.
So, we went through the memos. So I think this is accurate. The sewer mains have to be proposed as part of the project. I think they meant the sewer main, like they somehow have to show it.
I think it was the sewer main
Connect-
proposed connection was required. Yes.
Talked about the new section of the zoning chapter, which addresses it. Mr. Coladonato went through his sense of where the application was, because I think he said that he had gotten approvals or a long time ago for 3 connections. But overall, the issue has been that the Moodna Creek has said, well, you're not connecting because you're over allocation. Eric Denega, who's the commissioner. So then there were some questions as to how they would connect. There was discussion about that sewer easement and whether or not that lot had to be part of the application since they were using that easement. So they're not part of the subdivision, but they have to be referenced as part of the application. So we made a motion to assume lead agency because it was a new application. And we had it sent off for GML. And then after that, 127 Springs Road, I didn't make the changes here. I did look at them, but this was the whole discussion about the new law, the 2 families, there was back and forth with regard to the minimum lot size, what you could develop. So I'm just jogging everybody's memory. So that was it for this one. And then we held over the minutes and we adjourned the meeting. So with that, are there any other edits or questions on this one?
Barrett is 2 Ts. I'm looking at the
Great,
plot plan.
thank you. That edit. So with that, would someone make a motion to approve the July 13th minutes?
We'll make the motion to approve July 13 minutes.
May I have a second?
Second.
Noreen?
Aye.
Napoli? Repeat.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff Manson?
Aye.
Bonnie Franson?
Aye.
Pat Shea?
Aye.
Dylan Penn?
Aye.
Okay, and then the other one was 6/8/23. Actually, I already sent this one to you, I believe. I revised this one already, because I have revised on it. So this was going through,
Yeah, but I just don't think we had enough people
vote at that time?
to vote.
Okay, so I think we went through this.
Yeah, we just didn't have a vote.
Okay,
Does Lou have to be here?
Yep. Nope.
we have
Bonnie,
me-
Jeff, Pat, and Dylan.
I think we're good. 1, 2, 3, yeah. So would someone like to make a motion to approve these minutes?
I'll make that motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Noreen, this is to approve the June 8th, 2023 minutes.
Aye.
Pat Shea?
Aye.
Bonnie Franson?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Abstain.
So that means we just approved July 13th. And June 8th.
When do you need word on?
Or April 13th. Oh, no, I sent you April 13th. So there is an April 13th.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see what the deal is there. I don't know if these are the revised ones, though.
If they were revised, would it say revised?
Normally I do it in Word,
Uh-huh.
and then I send them to Noreen, or I just hold them. So 413, here they are. So I had sent those. So this is the revised version. Up. Okay. So 1, 2, we have 4. Okay, so this one I edited already. This had to do with, this was Verizon. And this one was pretty complete. Oh, here. Did we make a motion? Lottie Village. Worked through the recommendations, forwarded the CCR zone for us. So remember Ashley put together a letter for us to then send back to the town board. And so we discussed it, and then I had Chairwoman, the last thing was Chairwoman Francis would like added to the narrative consideration wastewater treatment plant location, lake discharge, and lake should be part of one of these parcels of the overall project. But then there was nothing, and I thought we took action. Because then I think we referred it to back to the town board.
I'll have to go back and look. I honestly don't remember.
Okay,
We'll hold that one. I'll look and get back to us.
okay, so we won't act on that till we get the motion?
No, I guess we'll wait on that one.
Yeah, that's kind of important, because that's fundamental to the minutes, or the votes. Let me just see if there's anything else in here that had to be addressed. All right, so we got to hold April again.
Now, you're talking about a motion on Homeland Towers?
No, it was Pilati Village.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
so that's April 13th. So we need to check motion for,
I have, on Pilati Village, I think I have, I have a motion that was made by Branson, seconded by Jeff.
that's May 13th?
Yeah. April 13th? Yeah.
So you have that one then. So maybe that was updated already and we just didn't vote on it.
This was a PDF that I,
So maybe I sent it to you, you added it, and what you sent back was the PDF?
Probably. I would send back the PDF.
All right,
They get only PDF.
okay. So, subject to updating the motion, would someone like to make a motion to approve the April 13th minutes?
so moved.
Pat, may I have a second? Okay, Noreen?
Napoli,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Pat Shea.
Aye.
It just
Abstain.
wanted to be noted that I was on mute, but I was the second on that one.
All right. So we still have May 11th, and we just approved, so June 20th is the one Barbara Singer did.
Yeah, I don't even have a copy of that. I
So
thought
I saw that it's posted.
it should be up in draft.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it. And so then we need 18th, 15th, and 19th.
18th you got today. I thought I sent it last week before I went home, but I never did.
Okay, so we didn't have July 18th, and then 15th and 19th.
Yep, they'll be done. The first one is almost done. I think I went back to look at a resolution.
So, anything else we need to address this evening that you want to bring up?
We didn't make a motion that night.
We didn't make a
No.
motion.
No, the wastewater was the last, and then I think the motion would have happened at the next meeting in April, because your comments on the wastewater, and then Mike gets up and the next applicant comes up. So, no, there was no motion made that night.
Okay.
So there must have been something in that we were considering.
So then, we will reapprove the April 13th minutes to reflect that a motion was not made after the discussion of wastewater on 4/13/2023. I'll make a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Hold on. I got to bring those minutes back up.
Okay. You're sure they're April 13th?
Let's see here.
Project.
Talking about Pilati, right?
Body Village, there is not one. Executive offices is in there, but it's not highlighted. Maybe you're, I usually have each project highlighted. Yeah, there's one with the motion underneath it.
Never mind.
Okay.
So it was Bonnie, Nick. Okay, so Nick Napoli,
Aye.
Jeff Manson,
Aye.
Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Dylan Penn.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
I abstain.
Okay. May I have a motion that we, to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any disagreements? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Good night, all.